Hello and welcome to Unacademy. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. Now, before we start the discussion, can you please let me know if I'm clearly audible and visible? If the audio video is fine, please give me a thumbs up or type yes in the comments. Great, everything looks good. So, welcome to the most comprehensive Hindu analysis on YouTube. So, let's start the discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. In the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper, we have several important topics today. I have chosen 11 articles which are the most relevant for the UPSC Civil Services examination. Let's cover them in a detailed manner so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. Now, before we start, I have a very important announcement. See, one of the most important aspects of your preparation for this exam is to take up as many practice tests as possible, especially full length test papers. So, Unacademy is giving you one such opportunity this Sunday on 26th October to attempt UPSC standard prelims question paper under the Civil Services Championship test. This is going to be India's biggest Civil Services Championship test. At 11 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. in the evening, you have a chance to take up these papers, practice your prelims preparation, and assess where you stand with regard to your preparation. And the best part is you also stand a chance to win attractive rewards, including MacBook, iPads, and up to 100% scholarship on our IAS courses. So those interested, click on the link provided in the description below and ensure you enroll immediately. And if you want the PDF of the session, please join our official Telegram channel. After the session ends, the PDF would be uploaded over here. So with this, let's get started and look at the first article. On page number 10, we have a column written by Shashi Tharoor. Shashi Tharoor, as all of you know, is not just a parliamentarian. He currently serves as the chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs. He has also served as the Minister of State in the Ministry of External Affairs under the previous Manmohan Singh government. More importantly, he has served the United Nations for nearly 3 decades as part of the UN bureaucracy. He has served as one of the Undersecretary Generals of the United Nations and even contested for the elections of the Secretary General. So Shashi Tharoor has a lot of expertise and experience in dealing with the UN, the entire UN system, the role of the United Nations in today's world order. Now, quite often we hear that the United Nations has become irrelevant. It has become ineffective. Because one of the primary goals of the UN is to maintain peace and stability in the world, to prevent wars and conflicts, to mediate between two countries which are fighting with each other, and ensure stability is maintained. But at least in this regard, the UN is often seen as an abject failure. It has been very ineffective in achieving this goal, and hence the UN is often considered to be completely irrelevant. In fact, there are critics who point out that the UN system should be completely overthrown and replaced with a new global rules based order. So, in this regard, Shashi Tharoor has a more nuanced approach towards evaluating the role of the UN and the effectiveness of the UN. So, this is a topic which actually helps us understand UN reforms in great detail. Now, let's take a brief look, a slight look at the history, the purpose of the United Nations. The UN, as a multilateral organization, was envisioned in the 1940s in the midst of the Second World War. In the early part of the 20th century, the world had been ravaged by the two global conflicts. After World War One, to prevent such global conflicts from occurring, an international organization was set up known as the League of Nations. Following the Treaty of Versailles, and once peace was restored following the First World War, the League of Nations was envisioned as an international body, a multilateral body which could work with countries, negotiate with them, mediate with them, and maintain peace and stability. But however, as you know, League of Nations was a spectacular failure. It not only failed to prevent the next conflict, many historians even believe that League of Nations and its ineffectiveness contributed to the Second World War itself. Because the League of Nations was primarily dominated by the victors of World War One, that is, Britain and France. They essentially hijacked the League of Nations, used it for their own advantage, to push their own influence. And they used League of Nations to humiliate Germany and the other powers which had lost World War One. In many ways, the ineffectiveness of League of Nations, its politicization by the victors of World War One, it laid the foundation for Second World War. The humiliation that UK and France essentially carried out against Germany is what paved the way for the rise of the Nazi Party and fascism in Germany, which essentially laid the seeds for Second World War. So during the Second World War, there was a realization that League of Nations is pretty much useless, pretty much ineffective. So Franklin Roosevelt, FD Roosevelt, the then president of United States, envisioned a new international organization, a United Nations, which could bring all the countries together. So right when the Second World War was concluding, in San Francisco, the United States, which had played a pivotal role in the Second World War, hosted the first ever international conference on United Nations. All the countries played a role, including representatives from India. Though India was still not independent, it was still part of British India. There were Indian representatives who played a role at the San Francisco Convention of the UN in helping draft the UN Charter. The UN Charter is the constitution, the document that defines the role of the UN, the purpose of the UN, the structure and the functioning of the United Nations. So, following the San Francisco Conference on the UN Charter was brought out that led to the establishment of United Nations in 1945. So, UN has played an important role since then. Now, the topic becomes very important for your exams because this year marks the 80th anniversary of the UN. Marks the 80th anniversary. And there's a lot of importance attached to such milestone events. So, United Nations was given a set of objectives under the UN Charter. And one of the prime objective was to maintain peace and stability. Another objective was to prevent wars, prevent conflicts. It also has the mandate to focus on development cooperation and welfare, focus on education, infrastructure, poverty alleviation, to focus on protecting the environment. All these objectives were added to the list of the charter. And it was also given a mandate to protect and uphold human rights, to help refugees, to provide assistance during times of disaster. Because following the Second World War, there was a massive refugee crisis in Europe and across the world. There had been blatant human rights violations, including genocides being committed during the Second World War. So, for upholding these democratic principles and delivering humanitarian aid and assistance, the UN was given a lead role through the UN Charter. So, United Nations has multiple goals, multiple objectives. One, to maintain peace and stability, prevent wars and conflicts, deal with any security threats affecting the world. And the other, focus on development, focus on cooperation between countries, help in their welfare, help in their growth, focus on socio-economic development, protect the environment and deal with environmental goals and objectives while upholding human rights and helping those who are in distress. So, this has been the stated goal and objective of the United Nations. Now, the big question is, has the UN achieved these goals? Has the UN been effective in achieving the objectives that were laid down under the UN Charter? Now, if you evaluate the role of the UN in maintaining peace and stability, or in dealing with wars, dealing with conflicts, dealing with security challenges such as terrorism or the threat of nuclear proliferation, These are some of the biggest threats and challenges that we have dealt with as a world, as a as part of the common humanity over the last 8 decades. Now, if you look at the role of the UN, in some instances, in some cases, the UN has actually been quite effective. Now, take for example the genocide that was committed in Rwanda. Though UN could not prevent the genocide, later the UN did play a role in holding Idi Amin accountable. Then, if you look at the conflicts that have been seen in Namibia, or if you look at the apartheid movement in South Africa and the anti-apartheid struggle, the UN has played a very big role in enabling transition towards a better future in some countries at least. It has been able to prevent some conflicts, at least bring some wars to an end. It has been able to deploy its peacekeeping forces. The UN peacekeeping forces have played a phenomenal role in peacekeeping operations around the world, in saving the lives of civilians, in ensuring some stability is maintained. In this regard, the UN has played a role, at least in some cases, at least in some conflicts. But by and large, the UN has been very ineffective when it comes to dealing with wars, conflicts, counterterrorism, and nuclear non-proliferation. If you look at UN efforts to combat terrorism, it has been largely selective. If you look at the role of the UN in mediating between two fighting countries or in bringing wars and conflicts to an end, it has often been accused of being biased. Take, for example, the Kashmir issue between India and Pakistan. When India placed its faith in the UN and took the matter to the United Nations in 1948, it appeared as if the UN was biased towards Pakistan. India felt betrayed by this, and eventually India tried to keep the UN out of the Kashmir issue. Through the Shimla Agreement of 1972, India ensured that there would be no third party involvement. We even renamed the ceasefire line as the line of control in order to take out the role of the UN military observer group. So these accusations have always been present that the UN functions in a biased manner, that the UN is ineffective to deal with wars, conflicts, especially when it comes to the big powers. It is unable to hold them accountable for their mistakes, for their crimes which might have been committed. You take big powers like United States or Russia, major powers like Israel. Most of these countries face little to no action or consequence with regard to what they have done or what they continue to do. Be it the involvement of United States in several conflicts, attempts to topple regimes, or Russian aggression. For example, if you take the Ukraine conflict, or the disproportionate use of force by Israel, most of these big powers have gone essentially unpunished. Even countries like China, which have been threatening the rules based order, violating international rules, they face little accountability. And this is where the question comes up: what purpose does the UN serve if these powers can't be held back and if they can't be punished for some of the violations they might have committed? It often appears only small countries, small powers have often faced the brunt of the UN, or at least to some extent, UN has been effective in small cases. But when it comes to big powers, it appears that UN is largely unable to act. Now, this dichotomy in the functioning of the UN comes up because of the structure of the UN, the way in which the UN has been established, the way in which it has been structured. There is a clear power imbalance that exists, according to experts. The power imbalance can be very clearly seen between the primary organs of the United Nations. If you look at UN General Assembly, it has universal membership. All 193 UN member states are part of it. They have equal voting rights. All of them have an equal vote. So UN General Assembly is a very democratic body within the UN, a primary organ of the UN. But however, the irony is that UNGA does not have the real decision-making powers. When it comes to critical decisions related to maintaining peace and stability, dealing with wars and conflicts, countering terrorism, nuclear non-proliferation, or reforming the UN itself, None of these key powers are vested with the UNGA, though it is a democratic body where each member country has an equal vote. The real authority lies with the elite body, the UN Security Council, made up of 15 countries. And amongst the 15 countries, you have the five permanent members, the P5, which wield the veto power, and they essentially control the functioning of the UNSC and by extension, the functioning of the entire United Nations. This is where the problem arises. According to the writer Shashi Tharoor, the United Nations is frozen in time. Its structure, its architecture is frozen in time. The current structure reflects the geopolitical realities of 1945, not 2025. Over the last 8 decades, there are many other new powers which have emerged, from India to Germany, to Brazil to South Africa to Japan. So these eligible powers are not represented at the UNSC. Maximum they can enter the UNSC as a non-permanent member, but non-permanent members have no power, no authority, because without the veto, it's absolutely useless. The veto lies with the P5, the five permanent members, and they can cast the veto to derail any decision. Imagine a very important resolution to end one of the pressing conflicts. 192 countries might be supporting it. But one of the P5 countries, if they use the veto, they can bring down that resolution, ensure it can never be implemented. Look at the Ukraine war. Russia can use its own veto to ensure that no such action can be taken by the UN. So the politicization of UNSC, the divisions within UNSC, and the very structure of these organs is the root of the problem. Within the UNSC, amongst the P5 countries, there is a clear geopolitical divide that exists. This was very, very evident during the Cold War period, where all Western democracies were aligned on one side. So, US, UK, France, the three permanent members, have always voted in the same direction, which is aligned with Western geopolitical interests. On the other hand, Russia, the erstwhile Soviet Union back then, and of course China, the other two permanent members, they have often aligned together. They vote in a similar direction, looking to protect their geopolitical interests. And division in the UNSC is at the heart of the problem of the United Nations. But is the UN completely irrelevant? Is it something which can be just replaced? That is the question that Shashi Tharoor is raising. Because UN is not able to deal with conflicts, it's not able to hold these big powers accountable, it's not able to punish the violators. Does it mean the UN is essentially dead? Should we cast away the UN and think of some other new organization, new institution? To understand this argument, you should know the relevance of the UN. Is the UN relevant at all in any way? See, we have established that UN has been ineffective when it comes to dealing with wars, conflicts, and security issues, when it comes to geopolitical issues. But when it comes to development, when it comes to welfare, when it comes to the environment, when it comes to upholding human rights, when it comes to helping refugees and helping people who are affected by disasters, there is no replacement for the UN system. Take, for example, the role of organizations such as UNESCO and UNICEF. They have done some phenomenal work. Look at the role of UNESCO in protecting ecosystems through the Man and Biosphere program. Look at the role of UNICEF in promoting the health and education of children. Look at the role of World Food Program and Food and Agriculture Organization in ensuring food aid and food security, in strengthening agricultural systems across the world, especially to mitigate the impact of climate change. Look at the role of the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, which is one of the primary organs of the UN. It is the ECOSOC which acts like a think tank of the UN when it comes to developmental work of the United Nations. It's the ECOSOC which envisioned the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals, which has pushed countries to focus on priority areas in socio-economic welfare, from education to healthcare to clean water, dealing with poverty, ensuring better maternal health and infant health care, ensuring adequate infrastructure is made available across the world, ensuring that financial assistance and expertise is provided to the weaker countries, the poor countries. The ECOSOC has also ensured the channeling of funds from developed countries in global north towards developing underdeveloped countries in the global south. So ECOSOC has played a very big role. Look at the performance of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, the UN Human Rights Council. They have been pivotal for protecting human rights, upholding the rights of refugees, delivering the much needed aid and assistance to refugees and population that has been displaced, especially because of disasters. Take, for example, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, when the tsunami caused widespread destruction, devastation across the Indian Ocean region. The UN and its institutions played a critical role in delivering humanitarian aid and assistance. So the UN system remains relevant to this day, at least in the domain of development, welfare, human rights, protection of environment, and dealing with refugees and disasters. Because if you take away the UN, imagine hypothetically there is no UN system at all. None of these organizations exist. Then who will help the refugees? Who will assist those who are in distress? Who will help those small and poor countries to deal with the impact of climate change? Who will help the disaster affected regions? Who will assist the weaker countries in their development to focus on their welfare and socio-economic development? There is no one else who can do that. So you can't ignore this role of the UN, where the UN has been quite successful. It has played a key role. Even India has benefited from this role of the United Nations. We rely on the UN for achieving our Millennium Development Goals and the current Sustainable Development Goals, right? We rely on UN institutions like the UN Environment Program to focus on environment conservation. We work very closely with World Food Program and Food and Agriculture Organization. India works very closely with UNESCO and as well as the UNICEF. We work very closely with the World Health Organization. These organizations might have some of their internal problems and inconsistencies, but you can't ignore the role that they have played. That is why Shashi Tharoor is arguing that United Nations remains relevant. There might be fundamental problems with its functioning. It may be ineffective in preventing wars, in dealing with geopolitical issues and security issues. But you can't ignore the other side of the United Nations, which is equally important for the world. So when you look at India and the UN, India is actively pushing for reforms of the organization. We have even formed an informal group called the G4. India is working with like minded countries such as Japan, Germany, and Brazil, pushing for reforms of the organization, seeking a permanent seat. Now, India is the most deserving candidate to be one of the permanent members at the UN Security Council. India is not only the world's largest country in terms of population, we are also the largest democracy in the world. India has the largest population and we are the largest democracy with a strong commitment for human rights and the principles that are enshrined in the UN Charter. India has contributed to the efforts of the UN. For example, India is the largest troop contributing country to UN peacekeeping forces. We have studied in recent sessions that till date India has contributed nearly 2,90,000 troops for various UN peacekeeping missions since 1950s, since the Korean War. Even now, currently, 5,000 Indian soldiers are deployed under UN peacekeeping missions. India has suffered the highest number of casualties, losing more than 180 soldiers who have been deployed in peacekeeping roles. We also contribute in terms of funds with regard to technical expertise for helping various organs of the UN. We not only take assistance from UN, but we assist the UN itself. India is a contributor of funds and technical expertise to the United Nations. Through World Food Program, we are delivering food aid to other countries to deal with hunger and malnutrition in those regions where famines are common. So India has played a very proactive role at the UN, and India believes that the UN needs to be reformed. UN need not be replaced. We need not cast aside the institution and try to find a new organization. That effort may never yield results. In a divided world, it would be even more harder to establish a new multilateral organization. Now, this is where a proposal from China is quite interesting. China has recently suggested that UN need not be replaced. China agrees that UN has become outdated, which is the position of India as well. India has always been arguing that United Nations in its current structure, in its current format is outdated. So China has also said that UN is indeed outdated. It need not be replaced, but it can be reformed. So China has launched a new initiative known as the Global Governance Initiative. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this. This is a pet project of Chinese President Xi Jinping. China announced this during the recent SCO summit in Tianjin, where even Prime Minister Modi participated. And Xi Jinping asked for India's help to promote the global governance initiative of China. China is seeking to reform these global institutions. See, it's not clear whether India can trust China or not. But one thing is sure that the UN is much better in a reformed structure than trying to find a new institution to replace the existing UN. So this is the conclusion of the author as well. Shashi Tharoor points out that yes, UN has its flaws, but you don't have a replacement for the UN. So instead of searching for a new organization or trying to set up a new world order, it's better to reform what is already present, rectify the flaws, and ensure better outcomes through it. So based on this discussion, let's take up this practice question. And as always, we will discuss the answer writing approach to this. So it can help you improve your answer writing skills. The United Nations at 80 is a work in progress with a vital role in global affairs. Critically analyze. So, how do you approach this particular answer? In the introduction, you can talk about a brief history of the UN because the question is highlighting the 80th anniversary of United Nations, saying that UN is a work in progress. So you can point out for what purpose the organization was set up. What has it achieved? Where has it failed? Where does it stand today? A brief outline of this. A brief outline of the history and its current status. This can be one of the introduction. Or you can take a slightly different approach. You can directly point out the flaws with the UN that exist today. Point out why UN is considered to be an outdated organization. Even after 8 decades, UN is seen as ineffective. It is seen as a failed entity. So this can be your opening introduction as well. Then in the body, there are two important segments in the answer. One where you highlight the flaws of the UN. The other where you highlight the contribution of the UN. So you can talk about maybe 2-3 examples to bring out the flaws of the UN. Talk about the structure, how the structure itself is outdated. Talk about the politicization of UN Security Council, for example, the divisions within UNSC, right? Then under contribution, focus on the role of UN with regard to welfare, development, protection of environment, upholding human rights, etc. Give examples. Take examples of UN institutions, the role they have played, and then suggest. You need to bring your suggestion here. Suggest that the UN needs to be reformed. A reformed UN can ensure the flaws that are currently present can be addressed. So instead of replacing it, the replacement is not necessary. It may not be feasible as well. So instead of trying to replace the organization and destroying multilateralism, it's better to reform the existing architecture, make it better, make it suited to the current geopolitical context. So, for that, new permanent members will have to be added. The processes of the UN will have to be reformed. The middle powers which have risen, they should be given a greater weightage. For example, look at Africa, look at South America, the entire Latin America region. They have no permanent seat at the UN Security Council. They each account for more than a billion population. Can you imagine the entire continent of Africa has no permanent seat? Entire region of Latin America has no permanent seat. The world's most populous country, the largest democracy, India, has no seat at the UNSC table. So these are the changes you can suggest. And you can try to end your answer by saying that the UN should update itself. It should adapt to the current geopolitical realities. That can be the conclusion of your answer. Now let's move on to the next article on page 12. There's an article related to the monsoons in Tamil Nadu, because the monsoon phenomena in Tamil Nadu is slightly unique, slightly different from rest of the country. And this article is evaluating the impact of the monsoon, the impact on cities, impact on infrastructure, impact on agriculture and ecosystems, and what can be done to ensure the impact of monsoons can be limited. Now, when you look at Tamil Nadu, most of Tamil Nadu does not receive rainfall during the southwest monsoon. The southwest monsoons, which arrive by late April, early June along the Malabar coast in Kerala, as well as at the Andaman Nicobar Islands, they completely skip this rain shadow region of Tamil Nadu. Most of Tamil Nadu lies in the rain shadow region of the Western Ghats. Because of the towering Western Ghats, the moisture-laden winds and clouds, they don't manage to reach this part of Tamil Nadu. And as a result, majority of Tamil Nadu skips the southwest monsoon phenomena. When the entire country receives rainfall progressively throughout the monsoon season from May, June till September, Tamil Nadu is largely missing in that equation. It doesn't get much rainfall during this season at all. So what really brings most of the rainfall to Tamil Nadu is the retreating monsoon. As the monsoons retreat by end of September, October, going all the way till November, December, it is during this retreating phase of the monsoon, which we call as the northeast monsoon, as the winds flow in the northeast from the northeast direction towards Tamil Nadu. That's when this part of Tamil Nadu receives adequate rainfall. Now, if you look at the past rainfall data, Tamil Nadu has been receiving excess rainfall for the last 2 years. Now, usually we assume that excess rainfall is good, meaning there is adequate water for drinking, for irrigation, for industrial activities. So, general assumption is that excess water is good, excess rainfall is good. But we need to be mindful of the deadly impact of monsoons as well. Because see, Tamil Nadu has this unique condition, right? And as a result, it faces the brunt of excess monsoon rainfall. Tamil Nadu is very, very prone to massive flooding. It is prone to the impact of intense bursts of rain, which has a detrimental impact on ecosystems, on the soil, on water bodies, on cities and infrastructure and the population. Recently, I'm sure you would have heard that following heavy rain in Kerala and followed by heavy rain on the Tamil Nadu side as well, massive flooding has been seen in the Theni division of Tamil Nadu. This is connected to the Mulla Periyar dam issue as well. Now, this is something you need to understand. See, on one hand, when Kerala gets heavy rainfall from the southwest monsoon, its dams will easily fill up. That includes the controversial Mulla Periyar Dam, which is the site of an interstate river dispute between Kerala and Tamil Nadu. The history of Mulla Periyar Dam is very interesting. It's a British era dam, a colonial dam, which even today is operated by Tamil Nadu government. Operational control of the dam is with Tamil Nadu government. But look at the map where it is located. It is actually located in the state of Kerala, in the upstream areas of the Periyar River. You can see the Idukki Reservoir here, the Periyar Tiger Reserve, right? And this is where, in the upstream of the Periyar River, that's where you find the Mulla Periyar Dam, located in Kerala, but operated by Tamil Nadu. So it's already a very old dam structure, which is threatened by the intense rainfall received in this region. The structural integrity of the dam is in question. On one hand, Tamil Nadu wants to raise the height further. It has approached the Supreme Court as well. Whereas on the other hand, Kerala is worried about the possible disasters that might occur. Now, when there is heavy rainfall on the side of Kerala during southwest monsoons, dams like Mulla Periyar, they easily fill up to the brim. Tamil Nadu will be forced to release the water as the dam is operated by Tamil Nadu, and some of the flow goes down towards Idukki, causing massive floods in Kerala. And some of the water flows towards the Theni division in Tamil Nadu, causing floods on the side of Tamil Nadu as well. Now, upon this, if we have an overlap between the southwest monsoons and the northeast retreating monsoons, now this would be a recipe for disaster for Tamil Nadu. Because on one hand, the water accumulated in Kerala during southwest monsoon season, when the water is released from dams like Mulla Periyar, part of the water will cause flooding in the Theni region of Tamil Nadu. Plus, the region receives heavy rainfall when there is an overlap with northeast retreating monsoon. So it's like a double whammy for Tamil Nadu. And that's the reason why the region becomes very prone to floods. And as you know, the impact of floods can be devastating. Several people get killed, get injured. There is large scale loss of life, which is reported. People lose their livelihoods, especially farmers. Crops, standing crops could get destroyed. This could uproot livelihoods. There will be significant damage to public infrastructure, from bridges and roads to railway lines to power cables, and mobile and internet connectivity can be completely disrupted for days and weeks together. These increasing disasters, they have a significant financial and social impact. So excess rainfall is not good all the time. Excess rainfall can have these devastating consequences as well, especially given the unique situation of Tamil Nadu, where it doesn't receive rainfall during southwest monsoon, but still the waters which are stored in dams like Mulla Periyar, when it is released to maintain the safety of the structure, it causes flooding on the side of Tamil Nadu as well. And if this rainy season overlaps with northeast retreating monsoon, Tamil Nadu gets excess rainfall, especially during the last week of September and initial 2 weeks of October. That's where the greatest chance of disasters exist in Tamil Nadu. When this overlap can occur between the end season of southwest monsoon and just the beginning of northeast retreating monsoon, that's where Tamil Nadu can face this brunt. That is why the article is pointing towards the need for disaster resilience, better planning, better preparedness to help the people of the region cope with the impact of these disasters. So that is what we learn from this article. So take up this question related to this topic and please practice your answer writing based on what we have discussed. Now, moving on, there's another article on page 10 related to international organizations. But it is dealing with the topic of immunity, the legal judicial immunity enjoyed by international organizations. The writer is questioning how valid is this immunity which is granted to international organizations. Now, for example, India is home to several international organizations, several UN bodies, UN agencies are operating their offices in India. Correct? There are several headquarters of international organizations located in our country. Take, for example, the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the International Big Cat Alliance, and the others. So, India has plenty of headquarters of international organizations Plus, there are several offices of international organizations and UN bodies which are operating in our country. Now, most of these institutions, they enjoy immunity from legal proceedings, meaning they can't be dragged to court. This immunity is granted to them through the agreements which are signed between the host country and the international organization. Just like diplomatic immunity is extended between two states for their diplomatic missions and their diplomats. In a similar manner, international organizations, the offices located in a country, they also enjoy a degree of legal judicial immunity. These institutions can't be dragged into court under our laws, meaning Indian laws will not apply. You can't file cases against these institutions operating in the country. Let's say you're a aggrieved party because of some action of this organization. Let's say you have been affected and you seek justice. If you go to a court asking to file a case against this international organization, courts will refuse because usually these organizations are granted with immunity as per the agreements that are signed between the organizations and the host governments. The writer is questioning this immunity because this immunity is not a blanket immunity. There are certain restrictions on this immunity as well. Now, take for example, let's say there is an international organization operating in New Delhi. Okay, it's based out of New Delhi, national capital. Obviously, most of the organizations are based out of the national capital. Now, don't you think this organization would have employed local people, meaning citizens of India? Don't you think they would have been employed by this organization? What if one of the staff member faces abuse or exploitation within this organization? Where will they go seeking justice? If immunity is granted to the organization, how will the staff members, the employees, seek justice in case injustice has been done to them? Let's say someone has been removed or fired without adequate grounds, or let's say some sort of mistreatment or exploitation of the worker has taken place. How will the staff member hold the organization accountable? How will they secure justice to themselves? What's the route available to them? Now, this is where immunity can be waived off by the Indian courts after consulting with the government. In legitimate cases, this immunity which is given can be waived off in certain cases. But usually, the decision is not taken by the government. The governments would be worried about the international standing and the image. They wouldn't want global complications. Usually, the immunity is not waived off, but the courts do have that jurisdiction. So, this is where international law dictates that in exceptional circumstances, if there is no alternate justice or remedy which is provided to such victims, in such a case, the immunity can be waived off by the courts themselves. For example, there have been such cases in Italy, in Belgium, in France, where the concerned courts have waived off the immunity of these organizations and they have heard the cases to secure justice to the staff members. This is recognized under international law as well. So there is an international precedence to this. Meaning, if the organization does not have an alternate way of addressing the grievance of the employee, of the staff members, if justice is not done to them by the organization, then the courts can waive off this immunity, can take up these cases under the concerned laws of the country. Indian laws, they can be made applicable by the courts. So within these organizations, they should have a alternate dispute resolution mechanism. Not just in theory, not just on paper. It should be operating in practice. Now, let's say WHO's office in India, UNHCR's office in India. If there is an internal grievance of a staff member or an employee, they will need to establish an alternate dispute resolution mechanism as per international law, so that the complaints and grievances of the staff members can be heard and justice can be done to them. This should exist not just in theory, not just on paper, it should be implemented in practice. If this is not established by the organization, then the courts can waive off the immunity. They can take up those cases under Indian law. So this immunity is not a blanket immunity which is given to international organizations. Is that clear? Now, moving on to the next topic. Very interesting article related to the topic of stubble burning in Punjab. So, as we approach the winter months, as Delhi NCR region gets consumed by the deadly smog, the only talk is always about stubble burning from Punjab, which is one of the main contributors to the deadly air pollution that you see around the Delhi NCR region. Now, this article is focused on estimating the extent of stubble burning. To what extent has stubble burning increased or decreased over the years? How do we measure the number of such incidents, the area of the crop land which has been burnt because of stubble burning? How do you estimate the overall impact? See, right now, satellites are primarily used to keep track of active fires. Satellites have the ability to not only record the number of incidents, they can even give a measure of the area which suffers damage because of stubble burning. So this helps the authorities, the policymakers to plan accordingly, to take adequate measures to curb stubble burning. But now the point is, these satellites, which are equipped with thermal imaging equipment, they basically use thermal imaging cameras to look out for the heat signature to identify the active fires. Now, first of all, why do farmers lit fires to the crops? See, essentially, in areas of Punjab, Haryana, parts of UP as well. First, it is rice paddy which is cultivated during the ongoing monsoon season. So, as the paddy gets ready to be harvested, the harvesting is done sometimes using mechanized equipment as well, or in some cases, it can be done manually as well. Once the harvest is done, especially using farm machinery, it leaves behind a stubble. The stalk of the plant or the paddy crop still remains stuck in the ground. So this has to be cleared as quickly as possible to pave the way for the next cropping season to sow wheat, because wheat is primarily a winter crop. So before winter can set in, farmers will have to quickly clear the standing crop, the harvest of the paddy, clear the stubble which is left behind, and ensure the field is ready for the sowing of the winter crop, which is wheat. Now, the time between the two cropping cycles is very short. Farmers have a shortage of time, and picking out the stubble is usually a manual work, taking more time and effort. Plus, they have to find cheap labor as well, which is very hard to find. So it's going to be expensive for the farmers. They have to spend money on securing enough labor or hiring the required farm machinery and equipment to clear the stubble separately. Plus, they have to invest some days and time and effort, which might delay the sowing season of the wheat crop. So, to avoid this, what farmers do, they resort to the easier technique, which is to set fire to the entire field. They try to burn the stubble. So these incidents are quite common. It has been a traditional way of clearing the standing stubble. But as you know, it contributes significantly to emissions, causes significant air pollution, releases particulate matter, which engulfs the Delhi NCR region, contributing to the deadly smog conditions. Of course, there are other factors as well in Delhi NCR region. It's not just stubble burning. This is often over glorified, over exaggerated. Apart from stubble burning, there are many other factors. The natural climatic factors and weather conditions, the still air which is present, it accumulates the particulate matter and does not disperse. Plus, you have vehicular pollution, industrial pollution, power plants, large scale construction and digging activity, which also contributes equally to the problem of air pollution in Delhi. But stubble burning is indeed one of the prime contributors, and satellite data is used to keep track of the active fires. Now, using thermal imaging equipment, the heat signature is picked out by these special satellites equipped with this payload. and they can track the number of active fires, the area which has been burnt, and this data is very useful for planning. Now, let me tell you the data. In 2023, there were 36,000 incidents of stubble burning. In 2024, this has come down to 10,900 incidents. So there's almost a 70% drop in the recorded incidents of stubble burning over the last couple of years. Because, of course, there is better enforcement. Stubble burning is prohibited today. The Central Air Quality, the Commission for Air Quality Management, right, that functions at the central level, that works and coordinates with the concerned state governments, has been enforcing these restrictions with the state administration. And there has been a reduction, a significant reduction in the number of incidents of such farm fire. Now, if you look at the area in the 2021-22 period, approximately 15 lakh hectares of farmland was set on fire. But however, latest data for 2023-2024 shows that approximately 19 lakh hectares of farmland was set on fire. This points to an increase in the area that has been burnt by stubble burning. So what can you infer from this? On one hand, if you look at just the incidents, if you only take the farm fire incidents that have been recorded, the number of incidents have significantly declined by 70%. So just by looking at this data, you might assume that the actual farm fires have reduced because of better enforcement. But if you look at the area which has been burnt, this has increased substantially. Now, how is this possible? How are satellites capturing this data? How are they accounting for the mismatch? What can be done? Now, please understand, satellites which are equipped with this special payload to track active fires, they don't have constant line of sight over a given region. They are not in a geostationary orbit. They are usually placed in low Earth orbit, meaning they pass over a region maybe once or twice in a given day, not more than that. So the actual data they are capturing could be limited. So you can't rely just on one set of satellite data. That is one key point you need to understand. Because some fires are very small, set only for few hours. They get exhausted very quickly as well. By the next time the satellite passes, the fire may not be active. That's why the number of incidents might have seen a significant drop. Because many of the fire incidents are very small incidents, minor incidents. In India, majority farmers are small marginal farmers owning very small patches of land. So even if they lit small fires, which last for few hours, if they are not captured by the satellites, if a satellite was not there at that point in the sky, the data would be missed. The incident would not be recorded. So this is one drawback of thermal imaging. Just relying on thermal imaging equipment, because it may not give you the complete picture. In a given day, those satellites might be passing over hardly once or twice the given region, and they might be missing many incidents. That's why some experts argue that you should not focus on tracking the number of incidents. This may not be the most accurate way of tracking the extent of stubble burning. But they argue that the area which has been burnt is a better indicator. Because the area burnt has increased, though incidents recorded have gone down. But there is a counter argument as well. Let's look at the counter argument. The counter argument is that today, advanced satellites like the Sentinel series of satellites of the European Space Agency, they are not only equipped with thermal imaging equipment, they're also equipped with high resolution optical cameras that can actually detect the area of fire which has been set. Even if the fire is extinguished, optical cameras with good resolution can track the scars, the burn scar which is left behind. They can look at the marks and signs of a farm fire, and they can still accurately identify the farm fire incidents and the area which has been burnt. So experts argue that today's satellite technology has advanced and you can rely on the data, because when thermal imaging equipment is combined with optical cameras, high resolution satellites like the Sentinel series of satellites, they actually provide a good indicator of the extent of farm fires. So what you need is such satellites which have the capability of not just tracking using thermal cameras, but optical cameras as well. That is the key takeaway from this article. It helps you understand how stubble fires are tracked. What's the best way of tracking them? What's the best parameter to keep a track of these incidents? Right? Now, coming to a related topic. On page 13, there is a related article in today's paper. The Delhi government has announced a very controversial exercise. It has announced a cloud seeding operation to deal with the air pollution problem of Delhi NCR region. You might have heard these news reports. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta has flagged off the initiative to launch a cloud seeding operation, and they believe that this can help curb air pollution. So first, let's quickly understand what exactly is cloud seeding. Will it really help tackle air pollution? Right? Is this the right way to tackle the environmental problem, or are there other ways to deal with it? Now, what do you mean by cloud seeding? In cloud seeding, particles such as silver iodide or sodium chloride, which have a free negative charge, a free radical, they are released into the upper atmosphere using planes or balloons or sometimes even drones. They are basically sprayed into the clouds, and it is believed to induce artificial rain. How is it possible? See, particles of silver iodide, sodium chloride, which is sprayed, they basically provide a surface for water vapor to latch onto them, and essentially it induces quick precipitation. As the water accumulates on the surface, the water droplet, the size increases, and eventually it gets pulled down by the force of gravity as either rainfall or as snowfall. So the presence of such substances in the air can indeed induce precipitation. So many countries have experimented with this. UAE, for example, China, for example, they've tried bringing rain to arid regions. It has been tried in interior parts of India as well, in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Telangana, etc., to deal with drought conditions to induce rainfall. But however, the science behind it is pretty solid. That is, when you spray silver iodide and sodium chloride, right? It can induce some limited rainfall, but the effectiveness of this and the long-term implications of this is still under debate. It's still under question, because in Delhi, air pollution is occurring not just because of particulate matter coming from one or two sources. There are multiple sources contributing to the deadly air quality in Delhi. Now, inducing rainfall might help disperse pollutants, correct? There is some scientific logic to this. It can especially help bring down particulate matter and help it settle it on the ground. So, for example, when during winter months, when there is western disturbances, slight rain does occur in the Delhi NCR region, and you do see the air clearing up for at least 1 or 2 days. But within a couple of days, the pollution levels will be back. So that tells you that bringing rain is not a permanent solution. It's like a temporary fix. It's like putting a band-aid on a major wound. That's not going to heal the wound. It's not going to prevent the bigger crisis. Now, understand the weather conditions in the winter season of Delhi. First of all, there is very limited wind movement, and there is a accumulation of the cold, dry air mass and there is very little water vapor present, even if you were to spray silver iodide or sodium chloride to induce cloud seeding and to induce precipitation, what will happen if there is no water vapor, if there isn't enough water vapor? The rare rains that occur during winter months in Delhi NCR region is because of western disturbances coming in from Mediterranean and bringing moisture from the nearby seas. And it is that moisture which precipitates to bring that rainfall, which brings some relief from pollution in the Delhi NCR belt. But without the western disturbances, without the moisture presence and water vapors presence, spraying silver iodide or sodium chloride will not give you anything. More importantly, it's a short-term fix. You are not addressing the root cause of pollution. The root cause of pollution in Delhi NCR is vehicular pollution, industrial pollution, large scale construction activity. Of course, stubble burning is a contributor as well. So, inducing rain through cloud seeding, it might help disperse the particulate matter and the pollutants for maybe few hours, maybe couple of days. But after that, the pollution levels would be back. That's why the article believes that techniques like cloud seeding or even the attempt to set up smog towers. We have seen this in India and China as well. They look very fancy for basically news. It looks as if government is doing something about pollution, but these are not the real solutions for the problem of pollution. Smog tower and cloud seeding, they have known to be very of limited effectiveness in dealing with the problem of pollution. Unless you tackle with the sources of air pollution, you can't deal with the problem. And also, we don't truly understand the long term consequences of spraying sodium chloride and silver iodide in large quantities, because this can accumulate. It can accumulate in the soil, it can accumulate in the water. So, what would be the health impact of this, environmental impact of this? How would this affect agriculture? This has not been clearly understood. We don't have adequate studies to understand the health and environmental consequences and the impact on agriculture of the accumulation of silver iodide and sodium chloride in water bodies and in our soil systems. So, this could create a new type of environmental hazard. So, when the science is not very clear on this, why should the government take this unnecessary risk? This short term solution will not solve the problem of air pollution. That's why the writer, the article is urging the Delhi government to move away from um, these solutions, which are short term, which only appear good for news making and for attracting the attention of the public to show as if the government is doing something. And instead, the writer is urging the government to focus on long term solutions to address the root causes, the sources of air pollution. That is what we take away from this article. Next, some quick updates. United States has placed sanctions on two of Russia's biggest energy companies, oil companies, Rosneft and Duke Oil. You might have heard of these two oil companies of Russia. They account for nearly 5% of the global oil output. So these are Russian oil giants. Russia is indeed heavily dependent on oil revenue. It accounts for almost uh, more than 30% of Russia's budget. Though the oil revenue has declined because of the impact of Western sanctions, there has been a 21% year on year decline in oil revenue for Russia. But still, it is what helps Russia to fund the war in Ukraine. Russia's energy exports, they have been generating the revenue, much needed revenue for the Russian government to fund the war machine in Ukraine. And now US is hitting two of the largest oil companies of Russia, Rosneft and Lukoil, with sanctions. And this could have a bearing on India as well. Because India buys Russian oil primarily from these companies. In India, we have Reliance, we have Nayara Energy, which is a joint venture between India and Russia, between Rosneft and an Indian company. Now, these private companies and even public sector companies like Hindustan Petroleum, Bharat Petroleum, Indian Oil Corporation, ONGC, even they are rethinking the approach when it comes to buying Russian oil. First of all, there is tremendous US pressure on India, as we've discussed several times. Donald Trump has targeted India specifically with 50% tariffs, out of which 25% is a penalty on India for continuing to import Russian oil. And US alleges that India is funding the Russian war in Ukraine. So US has basically tried to blackmail India. It has tied the trade talks which are going on to India cutting oil imports from Russia. It has made it conditional on India cutting down oil imports from Russia. Over the last 3 years, Russia has become our number one oil supplier, accounting for nearly 36% of India's total oil procurement at its peak. Today, India has slowly reduced the oil procurement from Russia. It has slightly gone down. It's still about 30%. Experts believe it's in the range of 31 to 35%. Out of our total oil imports, roughly around 31 to 35% of oil is still coming from Russia. Previously, it was at a high of 36%. Now, this is exactly what Trump is trying to target. Now, Trump has been repeatedly claiming that PM Modi has assured United States that India will be slowly bringing down the oil procurement from Russia. Now, how far is it true? We are not sure. India has tried to reiterate its policy of independent, autonomous foreign policy, but the pressure is very, very clear. And see, Indian companies can't take a risk. Companies like Reliance, Nayara Energy, they are being hit by sanctions from Europe as well. Then Indian public sector companies, be it HPCL, Indian Oil Corporation, BPCL, they can't take the risk as well because they have a significant exposure to Western capital, to Western countries, Western banks, Western financial institutions. If they are hit with sanctions by the US Treasury, they will be locked out of the global financial and banking system. Their other investments, their transactions with other jurisdictions would be threatened. Their other subsidiaries operating around the world would be threatened as well. So Indian companies can't afford the risk of going against the United States. So they are looking for policy guidance by the government of India. These companies are awaiting further instructions from the government, but early reports are indicating that the government has already pushed public sector companies to gradually bring down oil procurement from Russia. Eventually, private companies of India will also try to bring down oil procurements because without a trade deal with the United States, multiple other sectors in India will take a hit. So, this poses one of the biggest challenges for us today in our foreign policy to maintain our independent, autonomous foreign policy. But, however, there are other reports. A report was published by Kepler. You might have heard of Kepler. It's a well known um, data firm for maritime data, maritime analytics. According to this report from Kepler, for the month of October, India has actually sustained the import of Russian oil. In September, we had procured around 250,000 barrels of oil per day. Now, in October, we have still procured roughly around 1.8 million barrels per day, meaning we have sustained our oil imports according to the maritime data which is available. So, how does this indicate India is reducing oil procurement from Russia? Because that's what Trump is claiming. Trump has said that PM Modi has guaranteed, promised to him personally, that eventually we will cut down oil imports from Russia. And we've already started reducing the oil imports. But the data is showing otherwise. How is it possible? This is happening because the data for October, September that you see, these contracts would have been signed at least 1 to 2 months earlier. The oil we are lifting in September, October, the contracts for that would have been signed in August, in July. Are you getting my point? So now if India has already started cutting down oil imports from Russia, you will actually see that impact in November, December cycle. By the end of the year, especially by December, January, it will become evident whether India is really cutting down oil imports from Russia. Because those contracts will be now. And if India cancels the contracts in October, November, you will see a significant drop in supplies in December, January. That is how it works. So maybe there is some element of truth to what Trump is claiming. But again, we have to wait and watch because there is no clarity, confirmation coming from the government of India. Next, a quick update. Election Commission of India has announced the Pan India Sir exercise. Phase 1 of this will start very soon. Recently, the Sir exercise was conducted in the state of Bihar in the run up to the assembly elections, the special intensive revision of the electoral rolls, to ensure that electoral rolls are up to date, to ensure that voters who have passed away, voters who are not in the constituency anymore, their names are deleted and eligible voters are added to the list. Now, this is one of the roles of the Election Commission of India, constitutional duty of the Election Commission, and it's obligated under the conduct of election rules to update and maintain the electoral rolls. So, this exercise in Bihar became quite controversial as lakhs of voters' names were deleted and several documents were not accepted as proof of citizenship. And that's where the controversy came up. The matter reached the Supreme Court as well, as you are aware, and it still remains at the Supreme Court. Though Supreme Court has not questioned the role and mandate of Election Commission, because Supreme Court knows, it has highlighted that Election Commission has a constitutional duty to update the electoral rolls. But however, Supreme Court has directed Election Commission to use Aadhaar as one of the verification documents. But Election Commission has said it's not feasible. They'll accept Aadhaar as proof of identity, but not as proof of citizenship to be listed on the electoral rolls. So the matter continues at the Supreme Court, and despite that, the Election Commission is going ahead with All India Sir exercise, which is going to begin very soon. In phase 1, states which are slated for elections next year, like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal, Assam, then Union Territory of Puducherry, they will be covered in phase 1 of the exercise, and then it will be slowly expanded to cover all the other states and union territories. So this is one update you should be aware of. The special intensive revision of the electoral rolls will now be expanded countrywide. Next, the Defense Acquisition Council under the Defense Ministry, which is chaired by the Defense Minister, has approved defense contracts worth 79,000 crore rupees. This is a mega defense deal that the government of India has approved. Now, when it comes to defense procurement, the highest decision-making body is the Defense Acquisition Council under the Defense Ministry, which is chaired by the Defense Minister himself. So, to meet the requirements of all the three services, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, the required approvals have been granted for procuring essential equipment and critical military hardware. Now, for example, for the Indian Army, procurement of the Nag anti-tank guided missile has been approved. It's an indigenously developed anti-tank guided missile system, which can even be used to target enemy fortifications, enemy bunkers, and it can play a pivotal role in land-based battle. Plus, the government has approved the ELINT systems, electronic intelligence systems, which are ground-based and mobile. They can help track enemy emitters when enemies are using emitters and radars to intercept our communication, to jam our signals, or to use decoys to misdirect our strikes. So such enemy emitters, their locations can be picked up by the ground-based ELINT systems. So such advanced hardware has been approved for Indian Army. Then to improve the logistics for Indian Army, for improving the operational efficiency, high mobility vehicles with material handling crane has been approved. Then coming to the Indian Navy, advanced torpedoes for targeting conventional and nuclear submarines and midget submarines has been approved. This will be indigenously developed by DRDO. Then landing platform docks has been approved. The Navy can use these landing platforms for amphibious assaults, for launching joint operations with the Army and the Air Force for a sea-based invasion. And these landing docks can play a key role during disasters for delivering humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, especially to evacuate the affected population or to deliver aid and assistance to them. Landing docks can play a very big role. So this has been approved by the Defense Acquisition Council along with new radars, guns, which can enhance naval operations. Then for the Indian Air Force, collaborative long range target saturation destructive system, CLRTS-DS, has been approved. This plays a big role in network centric beyond visual range warfare in aerial combat. These systems, they can actually help in tracking enemy targets, and it helps in long range engagement, precision engagement of the enemy aircraft and enemy air assets. So such a system has been approved for the Indian Air Force. And the best part is majority of this equipment would have a high indigenous content. It's in line with the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat, of making a self-reliant India with focus on defense indigenization. Now coming to the prelim section, few small articles and we'll close the session after that. There's an article on page 5 referring to election petition. You need to understand what is an election petition. There can be a prelims question based on this. Recently, a petitioner approached the Madras High Court asking for some changes to be made with regard to the filing of election petition and the time duration within which the election related cases have to be decided. Now, let me explain quickly what is an election petition. An election petition can be used to challenge the validity of an election, be it an election to a MP seat during parliamentary elections, or election to the assembly, or local elections at the local bodies. These elections which are held for MPs, MLAs, etc., they can be challenged on certain grounds. The challenge can be filed either by other contestants who might have lost the election. Any candidate can file this petition, or even an elector, a voter from that particular constituency can file the petition as well. But the grounds have to be very clear. If there are clear malpractices that have gone unnoticed, or if there has been any misconduct by the winning candidate, or if there has been any serious violation of model code of conduct which gave an unfair advantage to the other candidate, or if corrupt practices have been noted. For example, if a candidate won the election by bribing the voters and the other candidate has proof of it, or other voters have evidence to prove that, they can approach the courts. But where can you file this petition? Can you go to the Supreme Court directly? The answer is no. Because for election petition, the Representation of People Act 1951 clearly states that the original jurisdiction of this petition lies with the High Court of the concerned state. These matters are dealt only by the respective high courts. High courts have the original jurisdiction. Clear? The Chief Justice of the concerned High Court will assign this particular petition, the election petition, to a single judge, or in rare cases, to one or more judges. But usually, according to the rules and according to the RPA, election petition cases are assigned to a single judge of the High Court by the Chief Justice. Of course, once the ruling is passed, then appellate jurisdiction is always available at the Supreme Court. But original jurisdiction for election petition lies at the High Court level. These petitions have to be filed within period of 45 days after the declaration of election results. Beyond this, those petitions are not entertained by the courts, and there is no deadline for them to decide on it. So petitioner in Tamil Nadu had approached Madras High Court asking for such petitions to be disposed within 6 months, asking for such directions to be passed by the Chief Justice. So Madras High Court has refused. The Chief Justice has said, how can I issue such orders to my fellow judges? It's not feasible, and they have rejected this petition. So this gives you a basic idea of what is an election petition. How can election results be challenged? These facts are important for your prelims. Next, a geography related topic. On page 6, the Hindu carries this image. You can easily identify where the image is from. It's obviously from the backwaters of Kerala, from the Kochi, Ernakulam region. Do you see the boat here? And the boatmen, they're carrying something on the boat. What they are carrying is a type of paddy, the Pokkali Paddy, which has a GI tag. It's a very unique type of rice. The Pokkali Paddy, it's primarily grown through aquaculture. It's known for its high saline resistance. It's one of the rare crops, food crops, which can thrive in saline conditions. So, especially in the coastal belt where backwaters are present, where the tidal waters they mix with the waters inland, they bring some salinity with it. Despite the high levels of salinity, this type of rice can not only survive, but it can thrive as well. So it's a completely organic way of farming this rice, which is specifically seen in the backwaters of Kerala around Kochi, in Ernakulam, Thrissur, Kottayam, Alappuzha. In these areas, this is where you find this unique rice being cultivated. So it has been awarded the GI tag to recognize its geographical uniqueness. And the best part is it is very sustainable, grown in an organic manner without any chemical artificial fertilizers being used. Because the paddy season is followed by the fishing season, the prawn season. Prawns are grown in the same field, in the same waters, right? So, prawn, what they do, they basically provide the nutrients for the paddy crop. So, it's a self sustaining cycle that they create. What happens when the rice is harvested? There will be some remnants of the rice. So, that becomes readily available food for the prawns, and prawns will leave the excrement behind, which becomes nutrient for the next cycle of rice which is cultivated. So it's a self-sustaining, ecologically balanced way of cultivation, where for 6 months you have rice cultivation followed by 6 months of prawn cultivation, and they both sustain each other by providing the required nutrients. So that is what is unique about the Pokkali rice. Coming to the last topic, the RBI has released, the Reserve Bank of India has released the Payment Systems Report. Please make a note of this. Payment Systems Report has been published by the Reserve Bank of India. This report, which is a biannual publication, meaning it's published twice in a year, once in every 6 months, this report helps you understand the trends in our payment systems. It helps you understand the rapid progress that we have made with regard to digital payments, and especially the increased adoption of UPI based digital payments. So please go through this article. I've highlighted the specific details. It helps you understand that today UPI is the number one preferred digital payment system in the country. In terms of value, in terms of volume, UPI has grown exponentially in recent years, especially from 2019 onwards. Following demonetization and following the pandemic, there has been a big boost for digital payment transactions in India. UPI takes the lion's share of the total number of transactions, the volume, and in terms of value as well, it has seen a significant substantial growth. Apart from this, NEFT transactions and RTGS transactions, they have grown significantly as well. RTGS, especially that provides for real-time settlement, it has seen the highest transactions in terms of value, even compared to UPI. RTGS based transactions that enables large amount transactions and provides for real-time settlement has seen a significant jump, and it registers the highest transactions in terms of value. Whereas debit card transactions have been declining. It points towards the reduced usage of debit cards, be it in terms of number of transactions, the volume of transactions, or with regard to value of transactions. There is a decline in the usage of debit cards in the country. This is the trend you should be familiar with. So please go through the highlighted points on the screen and note down the Payment Systems Report, which is a biannual publication of RBI, helps us understand the payment trends, the digital payment trends in the country. On this note, I bring my discussion to an end. I hope it's been an interesting and useful session. If you benefited from the class, do support us with your likes and comments. That is it. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.